Hello, my name is Samira. I'm doing my ANES project on nativism, partisanship, and ICE, also known as the Immigration and Customs Enforcement. So what and who is ICE? ICE is the United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement. It's a federal law agency under the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. Its stated mission is to protect the United States from cross-border crime and illegal immigration that threatens national security and public safety. The history of migration and immigration in the United States is one of the dominant forces shaping our experience of race today. Immigration for white people has typically been a smooth experience. However, as of throughout the history of the United States, minorities and people of color face a difficult path to acceptance, much less belonging in our nation. It's often common refer to United States as a country of immigrants. However, we see that that isn't really the truth as of lately, as immigrants have been exploited for cheap labor and treated as second-class citizens for hundreds of years. Anti-immigration sentiments fuel the support of closing the borders and negative opinions of immigrants, with the term calling them illegal, causing xenophobia and negative stereotypes towards people of color. I think it's very interesting to think about what it means to be a citizen and how we need a more inclusive definition for immigrants. So the conception of citizenship and nativism and what it actually means to be an American, and if whether or not we have a consensual definition, a well-rounded one, which one is the most correct one and which one we all believe in. So the question I want to focus on today is, does endorsement of nativist definitions of what being an American is affect attitudes about ICE? So an overview of the research design for this project is going to be used. We're going to be using the information from the 2020 American National Election Study, where before the election, Americans were selected to take a survey of many different topics, with one of them being how they feel about ICE and the nativist definitions of the American citizenship scale. So what is the nativist belief scale? So people were asked certain questions to be able to get their opinions of how important do you think the following is for truly being American? Whether to have been born in the United States, to have had American ancestry, to be able to speak English, and to follow American customs and traditions. And for this project, we were able to scale the code that the higher scores denoted high endorsement of each of these statements. And we can already see that these statements are already biased against immigrants, where American ancestry is immigrants typically don't have that. Unable to speak English, customs and tradition, and to already have been born in the United States, as immigrants are typically not, which does affect opinions of ICE, as they do control immigration. So we see here in the nativist belief scale that the mean, the average of what the information was taken from the ANES was 1.64, which is right in the middle, but a little bit to the more conservative side of the beliefs about being American. So this histogram shows the respondents' beliefs about the importance of being American. And the median score, the mean score, meaning the large respondents endorse some but not all of the statements. And the end of the scores, the lowest and highest scores have less support as compared to the median scale value, as we see that this histogram represents a normal distribution. We also have the ICE thermometer rating, where ratings range from 0 to 100, 100 being the most favorable and 0 being the least, and there's a mean of 49.58, where 18% of the respondents rated ICE between 40 and 50. And we can already see that people do not have crystallized attitudes about ICE as the distribution spreads across the histogram. And this is often because usually this happens when it's all spread across, when people are not especially educated on these topics. So my hypothesis is that I believe we're going to be seeing a correlation between the nativist beliefs and ICE evaluations going to be positive and moderately large. And we can already see that the scatter plot with jitter on the right, visually representing the relationship between the endorsement of nativist beliefs of what it means to be an American on the x-axis, and the ICE feeling thermometer ratings on the y-axis already shows a positive relationship between these two factors. However, there is a lot of variance and outliers as seen all the way down where the y-axis is 0. We already see a lot of jitter where there's a lot of outliers outside of the orange dashed line. There's also other variables we're going to be looking at in this project, where partisanship, where we have the Democrats, independents, and the Republicans. Republicans are just and Democrats are the D and the R. We also have Democrat leaners and Republican leaners, and we also have strong Republicans and strong Democrats. So in these box plots, we can already see that the Republicans have high ratings of ICE and the Democrats have low ratings of ICE, being unfavorable, and the independents are typically just right in the middle. So we have the means of the Democrats, which is 33.19, the mean of the Republicans, 68.47. We have the big T value and a low P value, meaning that this isn't by accident, and there is statistical significance to this, meaning that the ICE feeling thermometer of the Democrats having low ones and the Republicans having high one is not by chance. This is directly correlated to being a Democrat and being a Republican, showing that through conducting this t-test, partisanship does affect one's opinion of ICE. Other variables we're going to be looking at is racial identification, white and non-white, and how closely politics are followed from a scale from 1 to 4, not at all being 1, and number 4 being very closely. So with the racial identity of the respondents, 73% of the respondents identified as white and 27% identified as a minority, non-white, other, or multiple races. 65% of the respondents follow politics fairly closely or very closely, and 35% follow politics not very closely or not at all. And we can see already that in these box plots, we did a difference of means tests of white and non-white respondents. We have the black dot in the middle of the box plots showing that these are the means, and then the line is the medians. And we can already see through the T-score that there is no close call, and the P-score, there is significant difference due to race when regarding attitudes of ICE. We just have to look at party and look at the clear distinctions. Through party identification, right, and looking through race and ICE evaluations, we can see a clear difference in evaluations by party and by race. So we have that average, the 31.88 of the Democrats' typical rating of ICE. And then we have Republicans scoring at an average 69.28. So these are two different scales. So Democrats scoring it low, Republicans scoring it high. Then we have those significant T values showing us that this isn't by chance, like that we have significant differences, and there are clear evaluations by party and race. So next we have the regression estimates of the first on the left is the 7-point ordinal scale. In the middle, the 7-factor level scale. And on the right, a 3-level version of the regression estimates of ICE evaluations by party affiliation. And we can see through the R-squared, which shows us how best this regression fits the data of the ANES data, that the middle 7-factor level scale has the highest R-squared value being at 0.32, and it shows us the most information about the Democratic leaners and the strong Democrats and the the Republican leaners and the strong Republicans, which otherwise would be lost in the other graphs. So we can see through the regression that it gave us these estimates of each level of partisanship, of what it would predict a strong Democratic leaner, independent, Republican leaner, what would they would scale based on this regression. We saw more regression estimates of a nativist definition of citizenship, including a scale measure regression model along the 7-level factor variable for partisanship as shown in the last slide. And we can see that when looking at ICE evaluations in the relationship to citizenship status and nativist beliefs, that they're strongly related. We see that strong positive slope, a low p-value, and a strong t-value showing that this isn't by chance and that these are significant differences of the endorsement of nativist definitions by citizenship. However, when we're looking at party affiliation in relation to following politics and how closely one follows politics, we see that it's much more weak and that the slope is still positive slightly, but it is closer to like becoming completely horizontal, a slope of 0. So it's not as strong as what we saw back here, but it is strongly related to party affiliation, however, weakly related to how much one follows politics. We also looked at race in party and ICE evaluations between whites and non-whites between party affiliation. And we have 2 separate models, whites on the left and non-whites on the right. However, it is kind of difficult to see the separate differences. So we do have a graph which puts them together, showing us that the ICE evaluations are strongly related to party affiliation. However, there isn't significant differences between the white and non-white racial identification of one's viewing of ICE. So in conclusion, we see that partisanship does have a similar relationship to these ICE evaluations, and the endorsement of nativist definitions of what it means to be an American does affect attitudes about ICE. And going forward, we can go ahead and stop misconceptions of what nativists are being discriminated against and how we as citizens can constitute a consensual definition of what it means to be American, and hopefully educate ourselves better of what ICE does. Thank you.